Hi, and welcome along to this edition of Heroes and Icons on Lyra Media. I'm Pat Barry, and I'll be with you for the next 20 minutes or so. And this is a program that we highlight our heroes and icons of the 19th and 20th centuries. And these are our own personal choices. You're welcome, of course, to email us in with anybody who you would like to highlight on Heroes and Icons. And our email is info@lyramedia.tv. This is brought in conjunction with Blue Sky Broadcasting and Media Services Limited. And as I said, our email is info@lyramedia.tv, and we welcome your comments. And we absolutely thank you for all the comments you've made up to now. And all our programs are found on our YouTube channel. Now, the man behind me there in the collage needs no introduction, Peter Falk. But people might have forgotten his name, not that they would have anyway, but they remember him as Lieutenant Colombo, made famous with that trench coat of his and sucking on those big thick cigars, etc. Now, he had a first name, Lieutenant Colombo, and if you're watching this, when you're watching this program, this is a little quiz for you. And what was his first name? Of course, it'll be revealed during the program anyway, but just to get you thinking. And he had a dog as well, a basset hound, during his time and in many episodes, and he had a name as well. So there you go. These are a bit of trivia questions you have for now. Peter Fark himself, he was born in the Bronx in New York, and in 1908, 1908, he was born in the Bronx. And I beg your pardon, he was born in the Bronx in 1927, and his mum and dad were business people. His dad, Michael Peter Falk, he was in the clothing and dry goods area. He had a business in clothing and dry goods. And his mother, Madeline Hoshkinshak, also, she was an accountant and a buyer for the company as well, and for other companies as well as how she. So they were reasonably okay. They were both of Jewish extraction. That's his mum and dad, and they were, I suppose, they were from Poland and Hungary, and obviously when the program and all against that horrific event in history, which still resonates very forcibly and indeed poignantly with many people around the world, the Shoah, and against the Jewish people and against many other minorities as well by the Nazi regime that time. And so their parents found themselves in New York, and they thrived and they got on very well. Now, Peter Falk himself, I suppose at the age of 3, he had some disease in his eye, and he had his right eye removed and a glass eye installed at the age of 3. Now, some of you may be able to, I suppose, identify with that. And that, of course, he got a lot of staggering, but he had very good friends growing up anyway. And I suppose the most famous TV series that he's associated with is that Columbo, which was, I suppose, everybody saw at the beginning of each episode, you saw the murder being committed, which was unusual at the time. And you knew who did the murder, and you knew why maybe possibly did. But the dilemma for Lieutenant Colombo and really was to outfox, and eventually solve the crime. And Colombo ran, I suppose, between 1968 and 1989. It had one-off specials as well, about 10 in all, I think. But the main writers of Columbo was Richard Levinson and William Link. They were the main, and they said that the series itself was inspired by the writings of Dostoevsky. And of course, he wrote that famous novel with Crime and Punishment, amongst many others, but that's the most notable one of his. And that's the one that would be a reference to him back to all his other literary outpourings as well. And during the time of its run, that's Columbo itself, it garnered 13 Emmys 2 Golden Globes, and 2 Emblem Awards as well. And of course, Lieutenant Colombo's first name was Frank Colombo. That was his first name, Frank. And of course, he was always referred to in the series as Colombo. That's why some people may not have known or missed that little bit of trivia, you know. Now, he had a myriad of jobs. Acting and the theatre and all of that was his first love, but he had to get some employment for himself, you know. And he applied for a job in the CIA, believe it or not, a low-level office job in the CIA. And he didn't get the job, but going through the process of applying for it and getting to know the things in it helped him actually in his acting career down the line, as we look at later on, you know. Now, the first episode of Columbo was directed by a very young man, 24 years of age. The first episode after the pilot, if you follow my drift, the 2 pilots actually that were in, was by a young 24-year-old aspiring director at the time, Steven Spielberg, in 1971. And in that episode, we were introduced to his Basset Hound. And believe it or not, the name of his Basset Hound in that episode of Columbo was Dog. Now, there you are. How original is that, you know? So as I said, he applied for a job in the CIA, but he was turned down because he was a member of a union at the time. And obviously there was a lot of these communists under the bed type fears and this nonsense going around, particularly in the run-up to what we loosely described in history as the McCarthy era at the time, you know, which was a horrific time and a time of ignorance and backwardness in politics, highlighted very by that Congressman Joseph McCarthy. And because of he was a member of the union. Now, Peter Falk himself was a member of the union out of necessity, not of any major activism or anything like that, but it was perceived that they had communist leanings. If that was the opinion, it was an opinion based on fear, I suppose, and ignorance. And as a result, anyway, he didn't get the job in the thing. So he was cast in the 1960 film then, at the age of 33, that is Peter Falk, which was Murder, Inc. And it was his big break, really. And he was noticed by some casting agents and others that were in the business, as Peter Falk himself. Even though he hadn't a big part in that film, Murder, Inc., the part he had, then in 1963, he was in that wonderful film, It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. 4 mads, if you're ever in a quiz, there's 4 mads in the title of the film. It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, the zany film. And then, I suppose, as a result of some of those films, he became a personal friend with the director, John Cassavetes, and obviously he got parts in John's films, some of them. He didn't get the part because he was friends. It did help, but he still had to do screen tests and all of that for the part. And he got a part in Husbands and A Woman Under the Influence, Mickey and Nancy. And I suppose their friendship endured, you know. And as a result, of course, Cassavetes himself appeared in an episode of Colombo 1972 called Etude in Black. That was the particular episode in 1972. If you're of the mind to look back at that, you can see. Now, Lieutenant Colombo, of course, was aired on this side of the pond as well, in Ireland and Britain and all over Europe. He became an iconic figure. That is Lieutenant Frank Colombo with his broken down car and his, I think it was a Fiat he drove, as far as I know. I'm not too sure. I didn't look it up now. And his Basset Hound, and he's chomping on those cigars. You would think that those cigars would have killed him at an early age, but no, it didn't. I'm not advocating smoking until we know the horrors of it and all of that. But Frank Colombo, alias Peter Falk, it didn't seem to do him in anywhere. No, as I said, he had a very long career in television and movies, and this program cannot go into every single thing. All we hope to do with this program, these types of programs, is to inspire people to read more about him and learn the history of movies and particular TV series and all of that. And wonderful characters like Peter Falk was, he was a generous man with his time, and he was married twice, and he had three children. But anyway, of course, obviously, he was what was he? When I'm just looking back there, I think it was 84 or 5 when he passed away in 2011. Peter Falk passed away, but there was a controversy occurred during his last years, during his ill health, his declining health, and as a result of that, there came into law, an actual law came into being in the United States called Peter Falk law, Peter Falk's law, which is adopted as we speak in, I think, 15 or 16 states at the moment. Now, just to go back, in December 2008, it was revealed publicly that Peter Falk had Alzheimer's, the onset has Alzheimer's. Now, in June of 2009, there was a 2-day conservatorship held in Los Angeles. I think that's to fulfill requirements, legal requirements. And Dr. Stephen Reed reported that indeed that Peter Falk had serious dementia and that he was very much in decline mentally. So his wife at the time was appointed his conservator. Now, where we heard that, I didn't know much about it myself, personally speaking. I didn't know much about the ins and outs of it until Britney Spears' case came into the limelight there with her father being her conservator, but Shinshgale Ella. But anyway, now, of course, she then was appointed over her husband's affairs and his guardian and all of that, legally speaking. It's rather strange to me that a wife would have to go into court to become, I suppose, his guardian and conservator and all that. But of course, you must remember he had adult children as well. And of course, they would have naturally legal standing in the law because of who they were. And so at the beginning of June, the 23rd, 2011, Peter Falk died at his home in Beverly Hills at the age almost of 84. And of course, there's an autobiography out on his life on Peter Falk called Just One More Time. And it's a cracking read. I had a copy of it, but I have no idea where it's gone. If anybody out there, I give a loan of it, you might let me know. And it's just published in 2006. Now, there was a court case held and by his children. His daughter, Catherine, from his second wife, Sherry Dennis, she alleged in court that some of his family members were prevented from visiting him. Some of his direct family, now his daughters, and from visiting him. And they were not notified either. They weren't kept informed of his declining health and his deterioration by his wife. And they did not notify. And they got no notification even of his funeral. And really, I was reading this. It's sad reading, It's very sad reading, and it's sad because there was no need for it, really, in my opinion. There's no need for these kind of things to happen. I have no idea why they happen. I read loads of stuff about his wife and his kids as well, but really, I don't know why that would be. I have no idea myself, but it was a sad ending to a wonderful career, a wonderful man, a lovely man by all accounts, And anyway, in 2015, as a result of this kind of treatment, not informing his direct family of his deterioration in his health, not allowing them to visit when they wanted, not even mentioning when he passed and his funeral in time. So in 2015, Peter Falk's law, which I alluded to earlier on, was passed in New York State. And by now, by today, I was reading up, there might be more, but I could only find that there's 15 states now has Peter Falk's law, and we know what the reasons for that. Really and truly, I mean, to have a law, actually having a law in itself to me is anathema, but there you go, it's the coldness, the impersonality, the lack of love, lack of warmth, lack of feeling in society today that is reflective of society we live in, that you had to have a law whereby when your father is dying and is totally incapacitated, that you would have to have a law for the children to visit him. Never mind do anything, and then not to be told when he's dead is just, I cannot understand. I can understand frictions and divisions and all in families, but I cannot understand why you wouldn't at least tell the children, his direct family, that he's died and that he's deteriorated with severe dementia and all of that. But anyway, that's Peter Falk's law came into being as a result of that. And you can read more about that if you're told to do that. But Peter Falk's career, a fantastic career in film and in TV is where we came to know him best. But he was a damn good actor as well, as Peter Falk himself. And he was really, I suppose, this removed now from him. So back in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and 70s in his heyday, it would be worth to look back to see and look at some of the work that he did, because he did some cracking films, worked with fantastic people like John Cassavetes, Steven Spielberg, and all the other people as well, all the notables. And really, I couldn't find anybody, any actor that had anything really, really negative to say about him. Most, nearly all, 99% of what I read about some of the actors and actors and directors that he worked with had a wonderful, warm appreciation of the man that he was, you know, that's Peter Falk himself. And there are some clips there on YouTube that you can find in all his state, in the later years, in the 70s and the 80s as well. And obviously he kept chomping away at those cigars, and he lived till he was 84, but he lived a good life, as I said, and he came from a fantastic family. So if you're inclined to see, as I said, this is a series 2, episode 6 of Heroes and Icons on Lyre Media. And you can catch all the other programs on our channel, Lyre Media TV, on our YouTube channel, and tell all your friends about us. But indeed, from this edition, this special edition on Peter Falk, we might do a part 2 on Peter Falk, but from this edition of Peter Falk on series 2, episode 6, on myself, Pat Barry, until we meet again, take care and goodbye, and keep watching.